For millions of viewers, The Waltons wasn't just another television show. It felt like coming home. Every week, families gathered around their televisions to visit Waltons Mountain, where kindness, hard work, and family always seemed to win in the end. But behind that warm, comforting world was a very different reality. Contract disputes. Serious health problems. Budget cuts. Personal ambitions. And heartbreaking losses. So why did so many familiar faces eventually leave one of television's most beloved families? The real stories are far more emotional than most fans ever realized. Richard Thomas became a household name as John Boy Walton. His heartfelt performance earned him an Emmy during the show's very first season and quickly made him one of the most recognizable young actors in America. But here's the surprising part. Long before the cameras even started rolling, Thomas had already decided exactly how long he wanted to stay. When he signed his original contract, he made a promise to himself that he would leave after 5 seasons. Why? Because he feared staying any longer would permanently tie him to one character and make it difficult to build a broader acting career. As the show's popularity exploded, many assumed success would convince him to stay. Instead, he stuck to his original plan. When season 5 ended in 1977, he quietly walked away. Creator Earl Hamner admitted he hated losing his leading star but also understood why Thomas made the decision. Even members of the cast were shocked. Eric Scott, who played Ben Walton, later admitted he thought Thomas was simply negotiating a better contract and would eventually return. But he never did. Instead of writing John Boy out completely, the producers made a bold decision that would change the series forever. They recast the role. It was a choice that divided fans and permanently altered the family's chemistry. Yet for Richard Thomas, the gamble paid off. He went on to enjoy a long career in theater, films, and television without being trapped by a single role. But John Boy's departure was only the beginning. Someone even closer to the heart of the family was quietly preparing to leave as well. Michael Learned brought warmth and strength to Olivia Walton, earning 3 Emmy Awards for her unforgettable performance. To audiences, Olivia was the emotional center of the family. But behind the scenes, Learned had become increasingly frustrated. As the years passed, she felt the writers had stopped giving Olivia meaningful stories. Too often, she found herself simply standing in scenes, ironing clothes, asking simple questions, or watching everyone else carry the drama. Years later, she openly admitted she was bored. She loved the cast and crew deeply, but she no longer felt challenged as an actress. Eventually, that frustration became impossible to ignore. After season 8, she chose to leave in search of more rewarding roles. The writers explained Olivia's absence by sending her to a sanatorium for treatment after developing tuberculosis. Her departure came not long after Richard Thomas had already exited, leaving the series without 2 of its most important figures. Suddenly, the spotlight shifted heavily towards the younger members of the Walton family. It changed the balance of the show in ways that could never fully be reversed. But while Olivia chose to leave on her own terms, her on-screen husband faced a very different situation. And this one had nothing to do with creative fulfillment. Ralph Waite had been the steady presence of John Walton Sr. from the very beginning. For 8 straight seasons, he appeared in every single episode, guiding his television family through the hardships of the Great Depression and the early years of World War II. Then something strange happened. During the 9th and final season, he appeared in only 8 episodes. Fans were confused. Why would one of the show's biggest stars suddenly disappear? The answer came down to money. After nearly a decade on the air, ratings had begun to decline. Production costs were becoming harder to manage, and veteran actors naturally commanded higher salaries. Rather than keep Waite in every episode, producers offered him a contract for just 8 appearances. It wasn't a personal falling out. It was simply a financial decision. The Walton children carried much of the final season without their father's constant presence. Thankfully, the story didn't end there. Waite returned for every reunion movie made throughout the 1980s and 1990s, proving his bond with both the cast and the series remained as strong as ever. But while budgets created one challenge, another crisis was unfolding that nobody could have planned for. Ellen Corby's performance as Grandma Esther Walton made her one of television's favorite grandmothers. Sharp, loving, and never afraid to speak her mind, she earned 3 Emmy Awards for the role. Then, in 1976, real life suddenly interrupted the story. Corby suffered a serious stroke that left lasting physical effects. For many productions, replacing the actress might have seemed like the easiest solution. But the Waltons chose a different path. Instead of pretending nothing had happened, the writers incorporated her real-life recovery into the series itself. Grandma Esther also suffered a stroke on screen, allowing Corby to continue appearing whenever her health allowed. It was a rare moment where fiction reflected reality with remarkable honesty. Her appearances became less frequent, but every return carried even greater emotional weight because viewers understood the real struggle taking place behind the scenes. Cast members later praised her determination, describing her courage as an inspiration to everyone on set. She continued acting occasionally for years before passing away in 1999 at the age of 87. But heartbreak was about to strike the Walton family again. This time, there would be no chance for recovery. Will Geer's grandpa Zeb Walton was one of the show's most cherished characters. His gentle wisdom, humor, and experience gave the family its foundation. Off-screen, Geer had already lived an extraordinary life, surviving the Hollywood blacklist during the McCarthy era before finally finding enormous success later in life. Sadly, that success was cut short. In 1978, during the 6th season, Geer died following a battle with respiratory illness. Faced with an impossible situation, the producers chose not to ignore his absence. Instead, they allowed both the Walton family and the audience to grieve together. Grandpa's death became part of the story itself. The emotional episode that followed remains one of the most moving in the entire series. It wasn't simply television. It was a cast saying goodbye to a friend and mentor. His passing permanently changed the tone of the show, pushing it towards more mature and emotional storytelling. But even after losing Grandpa and saying farewell to the original John Boy, the producers still faced one of their biggest challenges yet. Could another actor really become John Boy Walton? Rather than retire the character, the producers introduced Robert Whiteman as the new John Boy beginning in Season 8. The story explained his return after recovering from injuries suffered in a wartime plane crash. It gave audiences a reason for his changed appearance, but accepting a new face proved difficult for many fans. Michael Learned later admitted that acting opposite a different John Boy never quite felt the same. The chemistry everyone had built over years simply couldn't be recreated overnight. Even so, Whiteman committed himself to the role and continued playing John Boy through the remainder of the series and into the 1982 reunion film. Instead of chasing another long-running television career afterwards, he gradually focused on theater, where his performances earned praise from critics. Yet while some actors searched for new roles, others were preparing to leave Hollywood entirely. And their reasons might surprise you. Cami Cotler practically grew up before America's eyes as Elizabeth Walton. She joined the series at just 6 years old and remained until the very end. Unlike many child stars, her departure had nothing to do with controversy or disappointment. When filming ended, she simply realized acting was no longer the future she wanted. After attending a few auditions, she discovered the competitive world of casting held little appeal compared with the close-knit family atmosphere she had enjoyed on the Waltons. So she enrolled at the University of California, Berkeley, earned a degree in social sciences, and built a career in education. She eventually became both a teacher and a school principal, helping shape young lives instead of performing before cameras. She still attends fan events and remains close to her television family, but acting quickly became a chapter she happily left behind. She wasn't alone in choosing an ordinary life either. Eric Scott, who played Ben Walton throughout the entire series, also surprised fans after the show ended. Instead of continuing his acting career, he stepped away from Hollywood completely. He joined a delivery company and eventually worked his way up to running the business himself. It was a dramatic change from television sets to warehouses and delivery routes, but Scott has never expressed regret. He has often spoken warmly about his years on the series while embracing the quieter career he built afterwards. His decision reflected something many child actors experience after growing up in front of cameras. Sometimes normal life becomes far more appealing than fame. But Ben wasn't the only Waltons son to head in an unexpected direction. David W. Harper played Jim Bob Walton through all 9 seasons, bringing to life the family's mechanically minded dreamer. After the series concluded, he accepted a few small acting roles, including appearances in The Blue and the Gray and the comedy Fletch. But before long, he realized acting was not where he wanted to spend the rest of his life. Instead, he returned to school to study business and gradually disappeared from the spotlight. Unlike many former child stars, Harper embraced privacy. Although he occasionally reunites with his former castmates at fan events, he has largely stayed away from public attention for decades. His quiet transition stands in sharp contrast to the dramatic departures that captured headlines. But one final Walton sibling followed an entirely different dream. John Walmsley's Jason Walton always had a passion for music, and that reflected real life. Long before joining the cast, Walmsley already played multiple instruments, including piano, guitar, and banjo. The show's writers recognized his talent and built many of Jason's storylines around music. After the Waltons ended, Walmsley continued acting from time to time, especially in the reunion films, but his heart increasingly belonged elsewhere. He devoted himself to music, working as a touring guitarist, producer, and recording artist with respected musicians across the industry. Eventually, he settled in Cornwall, England, choosing a peaceful life centered on performing rather than television fame. For him, music offered something acting never could. It allowed him to be recognized for who he truly was, instead of always being remembered simply as Jason Walton. Looking back, every departure from Walton's Mountain tells a different story. Some actors left because they feared being trapped by a single role. Others searched for more meaningful creative opportunities. Some were forced away by illness or heartbreaking loss. Others simply discovered they wanted quieter lives outside Hollywood. Budget cuts reshaped the final seasons, while real-life tragedies found their way into the scripts. Together, these moments remind us that behind every beloved television family are real people facing real choices. And perhaps that's one of the reasons The Waltons continues to resonate after more than 50 years. Beneath its comforting stories was a cast experiencing the same hopes, disappointments, ambitions, and hardships as everyone watching at home. That truth may be the most powerful story Walton's Mountain ever told.